Good evening. Welcome to the second session of the City of Bowie Workforce Development and Life Skills Training Program for Spring 2021. My name is Kay Starr. I'm the program coordinator. Tonight, we will be covering life skills, managing time and money, presented by Rhonda Simon and Simone Colquitt of Bowie Youth and Family Services. We will take a short break, and then at 7 p.m. we will reconvene to talk about computer programming with Christopher Stone, a software engineer at Microsoft. We're going to pause for a minute just to give everyone time to log on, and then we will get started with this evening's program. If you have any questions before we start, you can always type them in the chat or just raise your hand and we will unmute you. Thank you guys again for being punctual and joining us this evening. If you're just joining us, as I said, we're going to wait just a minute to give people time to log on, and then we will get started with this evening's programming. Tonight, we will be covering life skills, managing time and money, presented by Rhonda Simon and Simone Colquitt of Bowie Youth and Family Services. We'll take a short break, and then we'll reconvene at 7 p.m. to talk about computer programming careers with Christopher Stone, who is a software engineer with Microsoft. You can see the contact information of the presenters on the screen. You feel free to contact them with questions about tonight's presentation or just general things in their field of expertise. As always, I'm Kay Starr. Here's my contact information and the program website where you can find supplementary materials for this evening's presentation. Here's the agenda for this evening. We're going to start with life skills with Rhonda and Simone. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll reconvene at 7 p.m. to talk about computer career programming with Christopher Stone, a Microsoft software engineer. I am now going to turn it over to Rhonda and Simone. As always, if you have any questions, please raise your hand or type into the Q&A. Thanks for joining us this evening.
All right, thank you, Kay. Good evening, everybody. I'm glad to see you guys here. I'm going to share my screen. But while I'm doing that, if you're curious as to if anybody actually wrote down any goals from last week's talk. We did goal setting. You can raise your hand and let me know. That's not what I want. Okay, no raised hands. All right. Tonight we are talking about time and money management, and we only have an hour, so it's pretty condensed conversation about time and money. But it's more about prioritizing, because when we make our priorities, when we can prioritize our life, then our time and our money goes where we want it to go, which is part of how life works. Here we go. Remember I said last week that it's your aha moment that you gain. So because at the end of the day, the paycheck you take home is your paycheck, and it rises and falls with you. So I hope this week that you get another aha moment of your own. If you'd like to share your aha moments, we would definitely love to hear from you. I get as much from the students in this course as I do, as I hope you do from us. I feel like I get a lot from you guys as well. It's a very participatory course, so please don't hesitate to raise your hand. If you have something to say, add to the conversation, that would be great. Our student guide, if you didn't get a guide in person, is there's a link here to it. If you need that, we can put it in the chat or email it to you. We reference the student guide. We don't go through it page by page. But we do reference it. So if you do have it, it's for your reference, and then you can use it in the future to do your own work. And tonight's chapter is actually chapter 5, so we don't follow it page by page. Where we would be on page 25 of your student guide. We're going to use a chat box for questions and answers. We're going to explore the relationship between priorities, values, goals, and managing time and money tonight. Prioritizing. So it's the act of placing items in order of importance based on our values, goals, or needs. And so there are your values, your goals, and your needs. which will differ from the person next to you, right? It's about what you value. So so one of the exercises is recording ways in how you spend your time and money. So I know there's just a few of you here, and I'm bring up the whiteboard. I hope. Oh, okay, cool. So if you can put it in the chat box for me, like right now, how do you spend your time? Let's talk about how we spend our time. So put it in the chat box. Tell me some of the things you do. Simone, you can chat with me too if they're not chatting. Tell me how. Okay, so I know Simone and I work. So what do you guys do?
Yeah, one way to kind of break it down, maybe, Rhonda, is to think of it in terms of different compartments of our lives. So it may be, if you think in terms of your family, if you think in terms of education, if you think in terms of your physical exercise or recreation, if you kind of put it in boxes and think about overall, what are the different compartments in our lives? And then, that might help people think about how do you spend your time in these different compartments. So if you're working 20 hours a day, 20 hours a week, 40 hours a week, that would be an example of how you spend your time.
So we have a few things that people have typed in the chat. Working on a small business and studying because I'm in college.
Okay, and so studying, whoops. Don't judge me on my typing skills. All right, studying, working on your small business.
We also have working part-time and searching for jobs. These are all really like, goal-oriented ones, but we also have leisure time and downtime and maintenance and hygiene. That's another thing that is also, you only have so much time in the day and you do have your time doing those things too.
Exactly. So working part-time and looking for a job, somebody said. Right, okay. So prioritizing, of course, is the order of importance that we put these things. So we are just looking at our time right now. And if you do have leisure time and you want to put that in the chat box, that'd be good too. Because see, some of my leisure time is spent on Netflix. So that's my confession. What else do I do with my leisure time? What do you guys do with your leisure time, Simone?
Somebody said the exercise or that kind of physical maintenance.
Okay, I can't see the chat box. So
I was saying hygiene and, maintenance, home maintenance, physical maintenance, organizing paperwork, all that day-to-day stuff that you have to do.
Right. Yeah, so like I said, I can't see the chat box. So if they're putting in the chat box, you let me know. So this is how we spend our time.
And some people who are single might spend a certain amount of time looking not to be single.
We also have someone said, I clean and watch movies.
Clean and watch movies.
And spend time watching videos or comments or analyzing movies. Yeah, me too.
Analyzing movies, that's so interesting. And now I cannot get back to my box. Okay. That's disappointing. Anybody know how this works? Anybody know how I get back to my box?
Sorry, I do not.
I really want to get back. Wait a minute. Uh-oh.
There you go.
Yeah. Okay, there we go. All right. Good job, Rhonda May. Okay, so prioritizing, right? The importance that we put on things. So in your book, so I'm just looking at your again, page 26. So we're going to prioritize our time, high, medium, or low importance. So when I look at work, is it high, low, or medium? You guys need to tell me. I know what it is for me. So you guys can put it in the chat box, please. Is work a high, low, or medium, high, medium, or low importance in my values? Okay.
Yeah, we have high. Yeah, everyone's saying high.
Okay, Cool. All right. So high. All right. And working on my small business.
Oh, we do have one person who was a little bit more honest and said, I know work should be high priority, but it is low.
Okay, that's fine because you know, work is that priority that someone else set for me, right? So I understand what you're saying. So small business, if I do have a small business on the side, would that be a high, low, or medium priority? You guys can also unmute yourself and just call out the answers so I can type it in because I cannot see the chat box.
They may not be able to unmute.
Someone said medium.
Okay. Medium. Over there. Medium. Studying, and please don't judge my typing because I know my studying, high, low, or medium. What is it to you? Because there's no right or wrong answer. I hope you're not trying to find out, well, what's the right answer? The right answer is, I can see your name. So I'll just call a Mark, for example.
Medium.
Mark, the right answer is what it is to you, right?
Yeah.
So
one person is saying medium.
okay. And then working part-time, would that be a
Somebody
high level?
else. Somebody else said high with business, and studying is high as well with them.
Okay.
Medium.
Working part-time, medium.
Medium.
And again, we're just like using this as an example, guys. So there's no right or wrong answer. This is for you to think about, right? When you're deciding your priorities in life, looking for a job, high, low, or medium. If you said it, then let me know.
High.
Is high? Okay. I put Netflix as my leisure time. I'm going to put that as a high because
everything's high.
well, okay, again, no right or wrong answers. It is what it is. Now, Netflix is important to me, and I'll tell you why. Because at the end of my day, what I need is mindless something to laugh at. So I love sitcoms and comedies. That is how I relieve the stress of my day. And that's why I said that Netflix is a high priority to me. That doesn't mean that it's a, that if I had work to do, I would be doing my work. But it's important to me. So that would be a high. Exercise, whoever said that, like, would that be your high, low, or medium? No wrong answers here.
Someone said high.
Okay. All right.
Someone else said medium.
Okay. So this is just an exercise in us placing a value on how we spend our time. All right. I hope to start a different box and start talking about money. I don't want to spend too much time here. So I need you guys to cooperate. So let's talk about, or not cooperate, sorry, participate with me. So let's talk about money. How do you spend your money?
On the basics: food, clothing, shelter.
Okay. Can I just put that down as bills? Because I was thinking the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Spend my money on bills. Obviously, I spend my money on Netflix. I spend my money on hair care. Okay. Again, this is what I value. And you guys, please tell me what you spend your money on. It could be very different than what I spend. Like if you have bills, maybe it's only your cell phone bill. Or maybe you're spending your money on books. Or
Even if
maybe
you don't have a steady source of income right now, you still probably have had things that you wanted to save up for.
Thank you, Kay. True.
Yeah, we had someone who said car note.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah.
We also have someone who said video games and other things I don't necessarily need.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another thing to start to think about if your budget right now doesn't have a lot of necessities because fortunately, you're not in a position where you have to support yourself. You might want to start thinking about how, when your situation changes, you might need to guys your budgeting.
Absolutely.
We also have someone else who said mainly on food and family.
Oh, yes. Okay. Yeah, because part of what we're thinking about is, Kay's right. You're not always going to be without a steady income. right? That's not your goal in life. Your goal in life is to get a job that pays you well. And so you're going to have some money someday. And so understanding your priorities helps you manage what comes in. If you cannot manage $1, you cannot manage $10 or 100 or 1,000 or 100,000. So you have to learn to manage what you've got in small ways so that you can manage it in large ways. So, okay, let's go up to our bills. Is it a high, low, or a medium priority in my life? It'd be a high.
Yes.
Because I cannot get to work without my car. So, or I don't want to live in my house without my electricity. Okay. So would my Netflix bill be a high, medium, or a low priority? And even though it's important to me on my time, but my money is something different.
Chat says low priority.
A low? Okay, I like it.
Yep. You got
Someone else also said low.
Because it can go, right? If something happened in my life and I needed to cut my expenses, the Netflix would go. Okay, so my hair care, high, medium, or low?
Yeah, high.
High, says someone in all caps. So apparently we're emphatically high.
Good. I'm glad somebody said that. That is a high. I'm gonna tell you.
We got 2 highs and a low on that one.
All right.
No, two highs and an LOL.
Oh, is that what that was? I'm sorry.
Here's the thing about hair care. I'm not gonna lie. So that's a salon expense, and it can be very expensive, right? To go to the salon and get your hair done professionally. When my husband and I first started budgeting, and I mean like strictly we were going to budget. One of the things he said is, you spend a lot of money on hair care. And I said, yes, I do. And you need to put that in the budget. And we need to allow for that expense monthly. And so we did, and I do, because it's important to me. So I had a friend, just hair care the same way. She used to get her nails done all the time. I never got my nails done professionally because I think like those acrylics, because I think the upkeep was too much money. And she said she did that for her self-care, and that she also budgeted that. So I think that, you know, whether it's hair care, self-care, maybe it's a gym membership, if that's what is important to you, and it is important to your mental health, then you need to budget for that. I think video games could be the same way. I think video games, do you guys think it's high, low, or medium?
Rhonda, I did want to mention on hair care that this can also be related to larger expenses for personal grooming and professionalism. So expenses related to the field you choose,
yes,
some necessities, even though they don't seem now like they would be, because your day-to-day life doesn't require a professional hair and makeup job every day.
Right.
Life doesn't require you to do a lot of physical lifting, but if you do get a job that requires that, you want to think about what kind of physical therapy or massage you might want to include. So that's
right.
another thing to think about with personal maintenance.
Right. Yeah.
Back on the video game topic, some people said low, some people said high.
Okay. Again, there is no wrong answer here, because high and low. Because if video games is what you do for your mental health, right? That's anything that you use to de-stress you, that could be a positive in your life. I mean, I know we can take everything to the extreme, right? You can have a job and then play video games all night long and be too tired to get up for your job. So that's not a good thing. It's not serving you well. But if you're using video games as a de-stressor, and I know a lot of people who do, then that's a high for you, right? For me, it definitely would be a low, but my Netflix, well, is also a low, but in other ways it's a high. So
I think one of our participants said that it was high because they are interested in this field. I think that's what I kind of from their response.
Absolutely.
So they learn as they play.
Yes, that is very, very true. And yes, there's a world of money to be made out there in video games. Food on my money, high, medium, or low? Because we've got to move along.
High.
So there's high. Yeah, is that entertainment food, like going out to eat, or is it food like, you know?
Oh, that's a good question, Simone. I mean, I didn't put food down there, so I don't know who did. So what do you guys think? Is that eating out? Because we do need food to survive. So in that way, it would be a high. But if I were spending my money eating out, then that might be a low. This might be something I could adjust.
Yeah.
Someone said eating out would be a medium, and someone said
Okay.
both are the same to me.
Okay.
Medium low. And here's another thing to think about when, there's all sorts of different ways you can spend money on food. Sometimes it can be discretionary, like maybe you don't need the weekly coffee or the monthly coffee or whatever, but sometimes people just can't live without that, and that is an important expense. So that's another way to weight your expenses.
I do need my daily coffee, but it doesn't have to be Starbucks. I can definitely have coffee at home. So the point of this exercise is to get us to start thinking about the value we place on our time and our money. That was the whole point of this. So I want to thank you guys for participating with me.
You guys did an excellent job on this. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Also, so you might start thinking about recording the ways you spend your time and money, right? And like I said, it doesn't matter how much money you're managing, be it 10, 100, or $1,000. It's about that value, right? So if I have $10, what am I going to spend it on? Or am I going to save it, right? So it's about the value I place on that money. And time is the same way, right? Let me see if I get back to my, I think I have to get off the whiteboard to get back to my PowerPoint. So another exercise you might do for this is to start thinking about how you spend your time and money. Whatever, what little bit or a lot you have, it's about prioritizing and recording the ways you spend your time and money. If time runs away from you, then you might want to think about how you're spending your time by recording it, right? So every like 15 minutes, every 30 minutes, write down what you've done. And there's an app on your phone that you can find out how much time you've actually spent on your phone. That's pretty cool. So I think that time and money can run away from us. And so we can definitely lose both of those things as we go through life. And so when we learn how to record them and prioritize them, we have control over them instead of them having control over us. Excuse me,
The first question, Rhonda, that asked,
yes,
what do time and money have in common?
go ahead, Simone.
Yeah, so what does time and money have in common?
And we'd like you guys to answer that for us.
Yeah.
So you can put it in the chat box. You can unmute yourself and let us know, what do time and money have in common?
One person said effort.
Okay.
Effort, yeah. What else? It's limited, right?
Yes.
It's very limited. So that's another reason, if you don't plan it, then you just really lose opportunities. So.
Yes, very good. Yes, it is. They are both very limited resources. So we do need, that's why we have to manage them wisely.
Yeah.
What happens if we don't use our time and money wisely? You guys can answer that question for me too, please.
Someone said you have to spend time to make money.
Yep. Time is money. Absolutely. And you should understand that too. When somebody's wasting my time, that's what I think about. My time is money and you're wasting it. Let's move along.
And so time is sometimes money, and sometimes people do value time for other things. So sometimes for people, relationships are important. So the time they spend in relationships, you can't really monetize that, but it might be a priority to you. Right?
Right.
But
yes.
Going back to, how do you spend your time will help you to understand that. What's valuable to me? Is it that new person I'm dating? So I need to spend time and put some effort there, or is it, my grandmom who's elderly, and I want to make sure I spend time with her. Or is it a new mentor that I want to make sure I invest time in?
Yeah, definitely. Very good, Simone. Thank you for reminding me of that. That's really good.
Sorry, we have a comment from the chat.
Sure.
It's like an investment for me, so I should always get something out of it either ways.
Yes.
Yes, I like that. I like that a lot. That's going to be my aha moment. It's an investment for me. Yeah, I like that. Thank you. Okay, so in your student guide, and again, I'm referencing page 27 and activity B. So scheduling involves planning and reviewing how our time is used or managing our time so it supports priorities. So some of the steps that we're going to go over for scheduling our time is to identify and list and prioritize and plan and evaluate. So that's some of the exercise we're going to go through. We identify what we want to accomplish. We list all of our activities. And this is about recording how much time you spend doing or how you manage your time. We're going to prioritize the activities according to our goals, needs, or values. We rate them as high, low, or medium. So we just did that exercise. Plan a schedule to maximize the use of our time and minimize distractions. And we'll talk about that later as well. And we're going to evaluate our schedule to see if it needs to be rearranged. So like I said, keeping a log of how I spend my time. So this activity is just an example of what you might do with, to log your time. I do challenge you to do this because when we start looking at exactly how we spend our time, I think we're surprised sometimes at how much time I wasted or how much time I spent studying, but not enough time with people, right? Like Simone said, these things are important. I do need to study, but I got to get up off that computer and out of this room and go eat and see another human being. So when we log this stuff in, we can rearrange things. So this particular person has 12 hours of activity in every day. And our time is limited. And this is what they do. So work, friends, and so forth. This is just an example of how they rated their activities. Let's see. So now we need to add a new activity to our day. So, and you guys please speak up, but we're really struggling in math. So we need to add 2 hours for math tutoring because we're prioritizing that math is high. And then we only have 12 hours in a day. So I added 2 hours and I need to take away 2 hours somewhere. It doesn't say on here, I guess sleep. We didn't talk about that. The sleep is very important. It's very important for our mental well-being, for our physical well-being. Lots and lots of studies out there about how sleep deprivation is, harmful and to us physically and mentally. So
I think they kind of take it into account, Rhonda, because they're just dealing with the 12 hours max, right?
Yes.
For each day.
Yeah. That's 12 waking hours. Yes.
Right.
So if I added 2 hours of math tutoring, what I'm saying is that I'm not going to take that. I'm not going to say, oh, I'll sleep 2 hours less.
No, you're right.
We're not going to do that. We only have 12 hours. So we added 2. So somewhere in there, and I'd like to hear from you guys, where would you take away 2 hours out of your Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday? What would you reduce? You can unmute yourself and talk or put it in the chat box. How would you reduce that 14 to a 12?
By cutting 2 hours of the TV and play video games.
Okay. Thank you, Lindsay.
Someone else type sleep/leisure time.
Sleep/leisure time. Okay. So that might be watching TV and playing video games. That's what I would think of as leisure time. Okay. That's really good. And again, there's no test at the end of this. So there's no right or wrong answer. It is your life. So what you choose to do with it, you only have 12 hours in the day. If you choose to take it away from video games or sports, that's what, that's your correct answer. In this particular instance, we took 1 hour away from studying, 1 hour away from video games. And the 1 hour of studying can come out because you're going to do 2 hours of math tutoring. So you can, balance it that way. Creating balance is what we're looking for here. And then someone took away the, 2 hours at the sports game on Thursday. So again, no right or wrong answer. It is what you want it to be. It is your life, right?
But it's
Okay.
it's a wonderful exercise. I encourage you to do it as well, to just sit down and, just take some time and look at where's your time going. And
Mhm.
Ron's right, you have to get your rest, because that gives you the energy and the mental,
Yes.
flexibility to do the things.
Right.
You do. Mhm.
So what are the advantages that we talked a lot about it? Will you guys tell me what are the advantages of keeping a schedule, and what happens when you don't keep a schedule of your time? You can unmute yourself and talk to me, or put it in the chat box.
Someone in the chat said efficiency. Do you want to expand on that idea a little bit?
Mhm.
I always like the saying, you can, if you don't plan your work, you plan your work and work your plan. Is that how it goes? Yeah. So if you don't have a plan, you don't have anything to really work toward. So keeping a schedule helps you to really.
Someone else said, oh, sorry, Simone. Someone else said you're more accountable when you have a schedule.
Oh, I like that. Yeah. Yeah. And what happens when we don't schedule our time? What do you think is going to happen to our time? Do you guys ever have a rain day or a snow day or a lazy day? What happens to that day?
You never get it back, do you?
No. So when, even on those days and when we don't schedule our time, what happens?
Someone said it goes out the window.
It does go out the window.
And another person said you waste your time / day.
Yeah. Also, like, in the workforce, what I have learned as well is that when I don't go to work with a plan, somebody else puts their priorities and their plan on me. And that's not always the way I want to spend my time either. So when that happens to me, if I have a plan, I can always look at my calendar and say, I'm sorry, I can't fit your job in today because I have this work to do. So I really like to manage my own time.
So that's what we call in the therapy world, setting boundaries.
Thank you, Simone.
Yeah, that time, having a schedule helps us to create boundaries in our lives and be our best selves.
Thank you. Very important. Kay, do you do the poll now? Do you bring it up, or?
Yeah, I will launch the poll.
Okay. So who keeps a budget? And you guys, can I answer it too? No.
Oh, sorry, I forgot to click the allow panelists to vote.
Oh, that's fine. I don't care. Okay. So go ahead, guys. Tell us who keeps a budget. Have you ever written a budget and kept it? And could please answer the poll question.
Again, there's no wrong answers. We're gonna leave.
No, definitely.
A minute.
We're here to learn. We're here to share ideas. And so if you've never done it, then, or there's what's a budget? You can maybe that's the answer.
And it's okay to know about these concepts and not have applied them yet. I mean, part of this is just learning about what concepts are helpful. So.
Yes. And if you have parents and you don't need a budget, that answers on too, and it's okay.
All right, I'm going to end the poll.
Okay.
Thank you guys for voting.
Thank you.
I'm sharing the results.
Okay. Okay. I love it. Thank you guys so much. So I spend my money before I have a chance to make a plan for it. So not really a budget. And I have parents, what do I need a budget for? Love both of those answers. So thank you very much. Like I said, though, you won't always have your parents' money. You guys are here because you want to move into the workforce. So you're, it's okay for now. And now if you,
but such
educate yourself about budgeting and time and money, then when you do have it, you'll be more prepared for it.
It's an important adulting skill.
It is. It is. So this might be a good time to talk about, Simone, some of the concepts about money we talked about earlier, like where do they come from and how do they apply to our lives? So
budgeting involves planning how to manage money so it supports your priorities. We talked about priorities quite a bit here. So you examine the elements involved in budgeting and learn and practice the steps in managing the money to support your priorities. So what are those priorities? Why are they important?
Well, I was thinking about the conversation we had about when I'm a young
Oh,
person, and
yeah.
I know my parents. I got a lot of my priorities from my parents, right? By watching them, because that's where we're at in their stage of life. They're watching their parents
Uh-huh.
manage money.
Ask your question again, Rhonda. I missed it.
Well,
You gave me it again.
the value that we place on money, and part of that value comes from family, right? That we inherit or that we've picked up along the way,
Yes, yes,
watching
yes,
our
yes.
parents
Yeah.
manage
So,
money.
so part of what we talked about when we were preparing for this is that we bring to the table when we talk about money all sorts of ideas about why money is important. Do we even talk about money in our family of origins? Do our money in budgets a secret? Um, have you had really hard times with money where money was scarce?
I mean, I
So,
have to say, in my family of origin, as New Englanders, talking about money is a taboo subject. It's especially in the older generations. It's not something that's discussed.
exactly,
And
exactly.
there has been some intergenerational tension because those values are changing in the younger generation in my family. So we
Right.
each other, but talking across the generations, there's sometimes tension about those values.
Exactly. Yeah. So it might not be that easy to think about. And for women, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
their gender expectations and roles and rules sometimes about talking about money,
Mm-hmm.
depending on your family of origin as well and the society in general. So those are worth thinking about if there are some particular barriers that keep you away from thinking about money or even thinking about time.
Mm-hmm.
Within different cultures, time means something different.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in certain cultures, being on time and ahead of time is just the part of the way the culture sees it. In other cultures, it's time is on a different kind of continuum, and it may mean something different. If you grew up in a very tropical kind of community where there are beaches and a more laid back lifestyle, then time means something different than if you're in an industrial place where time is monetized.
Mm-hmm.
So sometimes we get messages about time from our culture and messages about money from our culture and our family of origin as well. So why is that important to think about, Rhonda?
I think it's very important to think about because it will influence the way you handle your time and money. And you might not even know that that's where your influence is coming from.
Mhm.
So it's important to see and to learn from your culture. And since you do have parents and you don't need a budget, maybe you could ask them if you've never heard them talk about money, ask them and see what they think, and you might be really surprised. I did not talk to and this is just a side note, but I didn't talk to my parents about race until I was an adult. And I went in the Navy and I went back home. And I had never, ever heard my parents talk about anything other than the Italian community I was raised in. They never talked about any other races. So that was really eye-opening to go home and have that conversation with my parents. And that's just an example of how we are influenced by them, but yet we don't know it. And time and money is the same way. So you might be surprised at what your parents have to say about time and money. When you ask them. So I encourage you to just, start keeping a journal about your ideas of time and money, and maybe speaking to them about it, or even your grandparents or your aunts or your uncles, or maybe other people just within your cultural background.
Because when we're able to name things,
Mm-hmm.
then we're able to make decisions about
Yes.
what's priority to us
Yes.
and what's
Yeah.
going to be priority to each person that's here as
Mm-hmm.
they grow into adulthood.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When I was growing up talking about money, my mom was our money manager. She was pretty open about it, but it was the age where credit cards were coming out, right? Sears, Montgomery Wards, like J.C. Penney's, like all those companies were coming up with their own credit cards. And my mom placed high value on the number of credit cards she had. And she juggled those bills every month. And I watched her and I thought she was amazing because she did a good job, but I didn't understand credit cards. I just understood that my mom was juggling a lot of credit cards and she looked like she knew what she was doing, which she did, but it wasn't, it's not the best way to use money. And now we know that. This was back in the 70s, late 60s, early 70s when all of this was happening. And now, they do talk about your credit score and to have a good credit score. And that is important, but it's also important to find a good way to get a good credit score. And it's not easy to do. It's sort of like this circle, right? They want you to have good credit, but nobody wants to give you a credit card, which is, so it's a little tighter now than it was back then. Everyone was giving credit cards. As I grew up and understood the way she was using credit, I realized that that is not what I wanted to do, because it can also become your master, your money master. The more credit debt you have, the more that debt controls you. Every decision you make is going to be based on, can I pay my credit card bill, my car note, my house note, my student loan? So you just want to think about that as well as you're developing your priorities and your thoughts about managing time and money. And so that's what I wanted to say about that. And thank you, Simone, as well, for bringing that up. It's very important when you can look at, why do I do the thing I do? Why do I think this way about money? Why do I think this way about time? And to see where that comes from, and then make the changes that you value. Again, when it comes to our values, no one can value my time and my money, and they can't place that value on it. I place that value on it. If I'm working for a particular job, that's what I value. And you're going to do the same thing. So even though I go to work and somebody's telling me this is what you're going to do for your 8 hours a day, it's still something I value. Simone is a therapist, and that's what she values. And so she went into that field. And so for us to go to work, it's what we value. We just happen to be doing a good job for the people we serve and for the city that pays our paycheck, but it's our value. Is that?
Yeah. And it also helps you to identify too, Rhonda, where you might need some help or need more information. So if your family use credit in a way that today isn't as wise, it can help what resources to look for and what questions to ask. Right. It's a nice starting point. This is what I didn't have, so this is what I need more of.
Yeah. So thank you. Okay, so I'm going to kind of move along rather quickly now. Does anyone have any questions or comments up to this point? Because we gave you a little bit of the value side of it. Now we're going to talk a little more concretely about some money. Vocabulary.
So
okay.
No comments in the chat.
Okay. So list your financial resources, for example. Okay, so this is budgeting 101. So budgeting involves planning how to manage the money that I have, right? Budgeting 101. We list our financial resources, all of our income and our expenses. We're going to identify fixed, variable, and discretionary expenses. So a fixed expense is something you pay. It rarely ever changes, right? Like my car payment, which it's not $100 a month, but $100 a month for a car payment never changes. I know it's due on the 10th of the month, and it's $100. What's nice about money management in today's day and age is that as these electronic wallets, it's good and it's bad. I think it does take away from the reality of money, because you're not handling money. You don't have to write a check. You don't have to balance a checkbook. So you think that money is this magical thing that happens inside of the computer or the ATM. So I think that can get a little tricky too for younger people, because like I said, the electronic wallet. So I can fix my payment to come out on the 10th, and I never need to see my car payment. Good and bad. So that's a fixed expense. My variable expenses include things that fluctuate with usage. used to be cell phone bills. I think that's why that example is there, but my cell phone bill can be fixed as well or fluctuate. What other expenses can fluctuate? I'm asking you guys to give me an example of or Simone or Kay, you guys can speak up to.
Well, we have somebody raising their hand.
Okay.
Go ahead, Lindsay.
Insurance.
Mm-hmm. Your insurance bill can fluctuate. Yep.
Mhm.
I was going to say emergency medical expenses.
Mm-hmm. Those. Well, that's not, I mean, an emergency item is more like a discretionary expense.
Okay.
Because
We also, sorry.
Go ahead.
Someone typed in the chat, rent, car insurance, utilities, electric, and water bill.
Okay. So
Yeah.
yes, so out of those, my rent is not going to vary. It shouldn't, right? If you're renting, then your rent should stay stable every month. It's a fixed expense. But your water bill and your electric bill, those definitely will vary, right? Based on usage. So that's a variable expense. And these are the things we need to understand, because if my water bill is variable, then I need to know this month it might be $50. But let's say you have guests come over and they stay for a couple of days and they, water, electricity is going to go up. So next month, your water or electricity bill might be $55 instead of $50. So it's important to understand the difference between what is going to be on my fixed expense. Your rent should not vary monthly. If it is, you need to find a new place if you can.
And both of us grew up in the Midwest, Rhonda, you and I. So something like your electric bill or your gas bill in the wintertime
yes,
might be extraordinarily high.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
And very
And
good,
so
Simone. Thank you.
Those kinds of things.
Yes. And you have to budget for those things.
Yeah.
Discretionary expenses, I think Kay mentioned emergency medical items. So yes, emergency items, medical, or this is unplanned, non-essential items that are unplanned, but they're essential, right? Because if I have a medical emergency or my car breaks down, I need new battery, new tire. Those are emergency items I didn't plan for, but I should be budgeting for those, which would come into my savings account. And the variable expenses that Simone talked about with electricity, my husband used to have a job that was, our income varied because he was in sales, and he was in sales on a, what do you call that?
Could they get a little bonus?
Yeah, bonuses.
Or something like that. Yeah.
Yeah. So his income went on sales. And so it was bonus based. And it was different every month. It was very hard to live with. He got out of that job quickly because that was just a mess. But so his income varied. So budgeting, and that's where we learned to budget, because it was even more important to budget knowing that our income was going to vary. So we had to identify our expenses and then make sure, let's say I made more money this month, but I had to keep it in the bank for next month to pay the bills. I say this too about budgeting. This is not for the faint of heart. Even adults who have good jobs and good money do not live on budgets. It takes a lot of self-discipline to make a budget, right? And then live by that. We prioritize based on our goals. We determine whether it'll work for us, and then we readjust as things go on. So knowing that my husband was working off of bonuses, and that one month we made this much money and next month that could have been cut in half. So it was, and we did that for a couple of years. And that's where we learned how to manage our money. We had to save for the following months, which when you're young is not always easy to do, because you're very impulse. There's just some challenges that we fall under, which would be impulse spending. So in this example for budgeting, here's what we have: $200 a month. And this is what we're spending it on. And we want to buy a new cell phone, okay, so cell phones, they haven't been down as a high priority. I have to agree with that. I mean, today especially, it would be really hard for us to live without our cell phone and our cable, right? Because we need internet, especially in this last year of the pandemic, how much we needed our internet to live and work and go to school. So those became high priorities, didn't they? So in this budget, we want to add a new cell phone. So we can't go over $200. We only have $200. Somewhere in there, we have to reduce what we've got by $50. So you guys give me an example of what you would reduce to take that 250 down to 200, not taking out the cell phone. What would you delete? You can put it in the chat box, please.
Lindsay, you can go ahead.
Going out with friends.
Okay, thank you. So would you reduce that by $50?
Yep.
Okay,
Someone else agreed going out with friends.
okay.
Mhm.
Let's see. Okay. So going out with friends and the movies. So in this particular instance, and what I like about this example is, in effect, if going out with friends is on your low and you can find free things to do with your friends, then sure enough, take that out of your budget. But if you want to balance it and spend some money when you go out with your friends, then you can choose, to balance between movies and going out with friends. But you just have to get it back down to your livable budget. Okay, so how people deal with unexpected expenses. So I don't want to go over my time and I'm almost out. So here's some questions for you to think about, and we don't have to answer them all, but I hope that you can see how prioritizing and your values it can on the effect it can have on time and money. Let's see. Okay, so some things that can derail us, right?
Yeah, this was an interesting kind of concept for me, Rhonda, as we're
Mhm.
looking at it, because it says procrastination and impulsivity, which tend to be kind of negative, have negative connotations. But sometimes we procrastinate because it's part of our creative process. And sometimes, there are cultural considerations that are just part of how we are. So roadblocks to doing these things don't necessarily have to be negative, but they just are what they are. But, helping to articulate and to say, recognize what gets in the way of managing your time and managing your money and resources is important, I think. So it's important to identify them.
Right.
Do we have time for anybody to do that? Or are we pretty much down?
We have 3 minutes between now and our break.
Yeah. I don't know how much.
3 minutes. Huh?
So yeah. Okay. So I believe that tonight we just opened up a conversation for you guys, something for you to think about and talk to other people about, right? Talk to your young friends, talk to your old friends, just talk to people about time and money. Maybe you can start journaling your own time and money, and then use some skills to handle how you're going to use your time and money wisely. Just wanted to bring up these. I didn't bring up these last week. So here's some local support that's in your area. I said this, we are a counseling service at Youth and Family Services. I bring programs to the community, but first and foremost, we do family counseling. So here are some other things, other resources that are available to you. Any questions for us? Thank you for being with us. Thank you for paying attention. I will stop sharing my screen. If you need us, email us. We'll be there for you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Great job today.
Thanks, Rhonda. Thanks, Simone.
Thank you,
I
Kay.
want to mention to everybody that we also have additional resources on the program website, which and our participants thank both of you guys, Rhonda and Simone, for presenting.
You're welcome.
You're welcome.
So again, resources about these topics are on the program website, which is cityofbowie.org/work training. We are now going to take a break until 7 p.m. So a little bit longer than 5 minutes, but not by much. We'll then reconvene at 7 p.m. to talk about computer programming with Christopher Stone, who is a Microsoft software engineer. I will give everyone a 1-minute warning before we reconvene. So for now, get up, stretch, get a glass of water, and we will reconvene at 7 p.m. Thank you guys again for a great first session. All right, everyone, this is your 1-minute warning. 1-minute warning. We will be starting in 1 minute with the second presentation about computer programming. All right, we are now going to come back from our break and continue with our STEM career presentation on computer programming. Christopher Stone, can you unmute and confirm that you can hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
All right, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn the presentation over to you.
Awesome, thank you. I'm going to share my screen now. Screen to share. All right, can everyone see my screen here?
Yes, we can.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so my name is Chris Stone. I'll talk about more of myself, I guess, on the next slide, but just want to say before we start, if you have any questions, anything, just feel free to put it in the chat or just interrupt anytime. That's okay. I kind of want this to be more of a conversation, if anything. So if it's any a point that you don't understand something, just let me know and I'd be happy to explain. Thank you. Okay, so what this presentation is pretty much going to go over is learning about computer programming, different careers, and are there any opportunities for you there? So let's get started. Okay, so who am I? My name is Christopher Stone. I went to Bowie State about 3 years ago. I just graduated from Bowie State 3 years ago. Spring of 2018, had the opportunity to be involved in the student government there. I was actually a co-founder of the National Society of Black Engineers chapter there, and also had the opportunity to join Alpha Phi Alpha Fraternity Incorporated. That I was just involved in a few many things, but I went to school mainly for computer science. I majored in that all 4 years and graduated spring of 18. And then once I graduated, I came to Seattle as a support engineer at first, when I first came to Microsoft. So I was taking regular phone calls from, your mom or your dad, just calling in straight from like a 1-800 number, working with Office products specifically. So anything Word or Office related, Word or PowerPoint or Excel. But yeah, so about maybe a few months ago, I transferred over into software engineering. I found like that was my game plan from the beginning. I just wanted to eventually I wanted to work at Microsoft. I knew that was the place I wanted to be. And I just knew with the right timing and right connections, I would eventually be in a software engineering role. It's been great so far. And I hope that this presentation can hopefully inspire you to be here one day. So I'll keep it moving forward. So again, just the agenda, what we're going to talk about is just computer programming in general. What does it look like? And then the high demand of software engineers out there now. There's many companies out there looking for someone to come in and fill in the roles and create different things with software. And that speaks to the careers as well. And then we'll talk about the different types of paths you could take as a software engineer, whether you want to go into your own business, whether you want to go into a different company and be underneath them and, be a software engineer there. That could work too. So we'll talk about more about that later. And also we'll talk about the different resources if you're still interested in computer programming, which you could do today in order to, start carving out your path. So what is computer programming? So there's a huge difference between software and hardware. I kind of want to see what everyone else thinks right now. What have you all heard about different software or hardware? Can you give me an example of each one, or is there anything that comes to mind when you hear those words? Okay, so when I think of hardware, I usually think about just a computer in general, just a computer sitting right in front of you. And then software, usually the software, you can't have a computer and it exists and do all the things that you're doing now without the software being there. So the software is like the heart of the system, you know, or like the, I guess the soul, while the hardware is considered like the just the body of it. I mean, it's not much you can do unless, you know, the heart of it is pretty much pumping and getting everything going. So software could be just Instagram or Facebook or the website, or Zoom itself is considered software as a service. So what does coding look like? So coding is basically a set of instructions that you're telling the computer. So we can't talk to a computer the way we probably are talking right now, talking to regular people. So it's just a computer does not function that way. So we have to figure out, how can we get the computer to do exactly what we need it to do in a way that we can understand as well. And so that's what a set of instructions are basically there to do. You are pretty much coming out with algorithms and different strategies to make sure that, you know, this problem that you had is getting solved there through the computer. So with computer programming, we have these set of instructions, again, just solving a problem that we have. And so these to the right are actually some integrated development environments, which are used to where you're programming and actually coming up with these solutions and set of instructions. You enter your set of instructions there, and then from there, you're able to create websites, web pages, mobile applications. One that I frequently use as a Microsoft employee is Visual Studios. So this one here, the purple, is Visual Studios. Then we have NetBeans, Charmer, Eclipse, and Xcode, which is used frequently on Macintosh or Apple products for development. And so within all of these integrated development environments, again, we can talk about just like the different languages. You can code any of these languages pretty much in these applications. So what these applications are doing, they're taking Java, C, C++, Python, JavaScript, which are, you know, languages that we can understand. We can visually understand the concept of what is going on as a human being. They're taking these languages and then compiling them and condensing them down to ones and zeros, a language that the computer can actually understand in order to create the websites and the algorithms that they can compute. So Java, which is probably the most popular out of all of the languages, the most frequently used language in the world, just because of its longevity and sustainability. It's been here for a while, probably won't go anywhere. So you have C, C++, Python, which is very popular as well. And then JavaScript, if you've been on any website, then you've probably been on a website that uses JavaScript. So that's basically how I would best describe computer programming. Are there any questions there before I move on to the next slide?
No.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. All right, I'm gonna move on here. So algorithms, a process or set of rules to be followed in calculations or other problem-solving operations. That's how you could best define it. But I would like to break it down into 2 steps when creating an algorithm. So it's a set of rules, but we need to figure out, how do we create these set of rules? What are we doing? So we first want to you want to define the problem first. So analyze it and think about all of the very minor and major specifications that go into, you know, the solution that we need to get in order to solve the problem. And then after we pretty much looked at all of the fine, you know, specifications, we need to figure out, okay, a plan to construct that. So the best way that I describe it is sort of like an architect. So usually when someone wants their home built, they want to build a specific way, the architect has to go to that customer and ask, hey, How do you want us to build this? And then, you know, how, in which ways, how many rooms do you want? How many bathrooms? So they have to take what the customer wants, and then they have to figure out, okay, is this possible? What are the tools that we need to be able to construct this and then move forward? So that's pretty much what software engineer is doing at that time. They're say I'm given a task from my manager. Usually they may say, okay, we're trying to solve this problem here. We're trying to figure out, okay, how many customers are coming into this website at this given day or this given time. So that's the problem. And so I have to figure out the solution. How can I track that for my team? How can I come up with that algorithm? And so that's the best way I could describe what exactly a software engineer is doing, I guess, like at the beginning stages and before they kind of send out code to be deployed. Are there any questions here?
No.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Moving forward. So this is an example. So imagine you want a program that tells a user how many stamps they need in order to mail a certain number of pages. You need 1 stamp for every 5 pages. So for 6 pages, the first 5, you get 1 stamp, and then there's 1 left over. So you need that extra stamp for that one page. And so we have 12 pages. Another example is you get the first 5 needs a stamp, the second 5 needs a stamp, and then those last 2 pages of the 12 need a stamp as well. So is there anyone who would like to try to write an algorithm or think about just what they would do in order to kind of solve this problem? Like, how would you make sure that that person gets the correct amount of stamps if I came to you with 21 pages? Okay, giving it a second. It might be a little tricky, I know. Okay, yeah, so I think the best way I could think about it, just like going back to the previous slide and analyzing and designing it. And so if we analyze the problem, we see that the first few things, like we need those specifications, as we said before, just figuring out what is the problem and what are the variables there that we're already given. So we already understand that we're given, 12 pages, for example, and we already know that for every 5 we need at least 1 stamp. So those are some things we need to consider. And so when designing it, so I'm going to go to the next slide. And so this is pseudocode. So before you're actually coding anything, we're actually just talking about the problem and making sure that we kind of can understand it from a human to human perspective, making sure that I can explain what exactly I'm doing to my colleague or my manager or whoever or my teammates that I'm working with, and let them know, okay, this is the problem and this is kind of how we can solve it without even coding anything. So the first thing I would do is try to figure out the amount of pages that a user wants to mail. So whether that was the 6 or the 12 or the 21 that we were talking about before. And so then we could figure out, okay, cool. The next part we would have to go through is we know that for every 5 pages that we have, we need to have 1 stamp. So we could divide the pages by 5 and store that number in our result variable. So for example, we have 12 divided by 5, and we know that 5 goes into 12 2 times evenly. So we already have that as a possible answer. But we also know that 12 divided by 5 has a remainder of 2. So if there is a remainder after dividing, then we need to add 1 to our original result. So we have 2 stamps already there from realizing that 12 divided by 5 is 2. And so now that we know we have 2 left over, 2 remaining from the 12, we have to add another stamp because for those last 2 pages. So this is kind of where it can get confusing, but does everyone kind of understand that example? And if I lost you, please let me know. I will more than likely be happy to go through it again.
No, I understand.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Lindsay, for the confirmation. And then, okay, so this is what the code will look like. And so I don't want to scare you at all. So this is just a function. That's what we call it. It's like a method. So you would call this within your main code, and eventually this code was tell us what exactly, how many number of stamps we need. And so I took the pseudocode from the 1, 2, 3, 4 here and placed them into these lines here. So these are called comments, which help us keep track of what exactly is going on within our code. So if someone else were to come in and read our code, they would actually know what we're doing at that point. And so here I'm saying integer number of pages equals console.readline. So what this line means is we have a type. So you have different types of variables that are in our code. So this specifically is C#. So we have integer, which takes only whole numbers. You have double, which is real numbers, float as well. Then we also have variables, types that take in characters, meaning just like a single character like H or a semicolon. And then you have string, which is an array of characters, meaning it can take full words, full lines of just written text. And so with this one specifically, we have the number of pages. So from here, we're reading what our customer is inputting at that moment. So we're getting the amount of pages. So read line. So this is the point where we're reading what the customer is telling us. And so we're telling them, hey, whatever number we get here, we want to store this in our number of pages. And so that would be a whole number, like we said before, that's what an integer is going to give us. And so console.readline would get at this point 12. And so we have 12 in our number of pages. And then we get to our result. And we're trying to say we want to divide the number of pages by 5 and store the number in our result variable. So again, integer only takes a whole number, not a real number. So although 12 divided by 5 is about 2 and some change because it's a remainder left, it will only give us 2 because 2 is the only whole number. It ignores the rest of the decimal behind it. So the result will equal 2. And then here we get down to, here we get down to if there is a remainder after dividing, then add 1 to our original result. Else keep the result the same and return it to the user. So we know that 12 divided by 5 is 2 and some change, but this like modulus, we call this in coding modulus. I know many people see it as like a percentage sign, but what this thing does, what this operand does is pretty much get the remainder of a specific value. So if 12 divided by 5 is 2 for an integer, that whole number, this one is going to make sure we get only the decimal behind it. So if the decimal is equal to 0, then we can ignore it. So we don't need to do anything else but just return 2. But since 12 mod or modulus 5 gives us a remainder of 2 and some change, then we know that it's not equal to 0 and we would have to add 1 to that. So it's our result 2 plus 1. There's a remainder left over. Just going back to the original example, does that make sense? I hope I didn't lose anybody. Very good. Okay, I'm gonna take that as you all got it. I'm gonna move.
Yes.
Yeah, someone also commented that it made sense in the chat.
Oh, okay, got you. Thank you. Okay. All right, I'm gonna move on to the next part, which is why do we need so many computer programmers? So I imagine when you woke up this morning, you probably first thing you did was probably maybe talk to your Alexa or got on your cell phone and text your friends or talk to your parents or talk to a friend on FaceTime. So all of those things involve technology. A lot of the things that even the computers that we're on today, there's so many things being created and so many things that need to be created in the future and so many small components. And an engineer like yourself could be working on these products, whether at a big company or for yourself. So just the Internet of Things is like a lot of the things that we're doing is moving towards technology. And so that's why it's important that we have so many computer programmers start to come into the field. There are actually more jobs available for software engineers than there actually are software engineers to fulfill those roles. So that's the importance of it. There's so many things that need to be created. And so and the world is just always advancing, trying to find the next thing. And so I think for the last group, I pretty much said, like, for example, in terms of innovation, like look at your cell phone 10 years ago, you probably had a home button just with the iPhone. Today, there is no home button on the iPhone. It's just constantly evolving. Technology is always evolving. And so there's always going to be a need for computer programmers to work on these things. And then the defense, when we talk about just like cybersecurity, I know you all probably had that presentation last week. Cybersecurity, there's so many threats happening. I was speaking about the one that happened at Microsoft recently from SolarWinds. All of these threats are constantly coming into America, and people are trying to hack information. Information is so huge. People are trying to hack into people's bank accounts, figure out, just secret information. So we're in the information age that they would like to say. So in order to, protect those things, we need software engineers creating secure code in order to make sure that, our customers are protected. And so and we already talked about the shortage of students there too. So yeah, do I have any questions there before I move on to the next slide? Okay, awesome. So careers in computers. So we also have video game development. So at Microsoft, there's like a plethora of different things that go on. So you have Office, you have Xbox, you have HoloLens. And so there's many type of developers working on all of these different things. So you have video game development. If you love Fortnite or you love Call of Duty, these are games that you could be, working on one day. If you love just like animation and the graphics and creating those things, you could be a video game developer. If you like creating websites, that could be your passion, and you like creating websites for other people, then if that draws you in, you could go into web development. And then you also have mobile development. That kind of coincides with Facebook or Instagram or Twitter. That would be mobile devices, and creating games as well. A lot of our games now are transferring over into mobile. So that would be pretty cool in terms of intersectionality. Then cybersecurity, which we spoke on earlier, just being a level of defense in creating secure code. And then software quality assurance engineer, which this group is pretty much trying to infiltrate and trying to hack at a specific their team's code and trying to break it as much as possible to make sure that it is secure, so that it is of quality. So they're trying to break it down as much as possible, and if they can't, then they know that the code is actually secure. If they can, then they have to send it back and let them know, like, hey, there's something you need to fix here. So there's many different opportunities and careers that you can do within computer space. And I'm gonna move on to the next one just in case anybody has any questions. But there's also a way of trying to find your path within that. And so I'm going to talk about, I guess, the benefits of being in computer programming. So a lot of people, when they hear about computer programming, they hear about the salary, they hear about, you know, all the benefits that come within it, and the salary is nice. But I will say, like, make sure you actually have a passion and want to do it. Like, the money won't be the only thing really driving you. So I think that's really important, just knowing your purpose and why you're doing that, knowing your why, really. And then and in the path of choosing which one you want to go through, or so if you don't have like a, you know, if you're not working at a company, you know, you're doing these things yourselves, then you're pretty much setting your own salary. So if you were to go into consulting, that would look a lot different in terms of you creating your own time and you setting your own salary. And so with consultant, that could be like, for instance, someone has a cupcake business and they're trying to figure out how to create a website. You can come in and, you know, create that website for them, and they can pay you. And I've seen people make about 10,000 for each website that they've created, because this is a investment that this person who has this cupcake business is, you know, investing in a website. Like, once you create a website, you probably won't have to change it probably for another 10 years in terms of like it being consistent and not having to update it and doing like a whole rehaul of it. But you can go to each business and all of these different businesses that you see that probably need help updating their website or creating their website, and, you know, you see an opportunity and you decide to go out and create that website for them or create that mobile app for them. And so just being a consultant, you can make your own path that way. And then owning your own business, that would be similar to consulting, but just being able to employ others. So look at Jeff Bezos, look at Bill Gates. And I think that the important thing here is not just having it's not a business that sells software, which that is a type of business, but almost every single business nowadays needs a software engineer. Think about all the companies. It's hard to think about one company that doesn't have a social footprint or that you're not able to find on the internet. So talk about Target, you talk about Walmart, all of these huge companies have websites. And so it's important that, like, that's another room of opportunity you find for yourself, is in terms of job security. There's always, like I said before, it's always going to be a need for software engineers. And then we could talk about workplace environment as well. Has anyone ever seen the movie The Internship? It's about Google in their work environment.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a pretty good movie. But it's really known for just showcasing the work environment of the tech hub world. So if you were to come to Silicon Valley and see what Facebook or Google really looks like, you'll see that most of them are probably picking up a free lunch or getting free drinks, or in terms of like, they just have this refrigerator. I know at Microsoft, we have this refrigerator just full of like Coca-Cola, apple juice, orange juice. It's all free coffee, free things here and there. So it comes along with the perks of working at those companies. So the workplace environment is nice. And they also put, like, some companies do put like a lot of emphasis on work-life balance, or they aren't as strict or on in terms of like like, you know, when you go to a firm or something, you have to dress up in suits and all that. They're a lot more relaxed and calm in terms of like, you could just wear jeans and like a shirt and don't have to overdress in some of these places. So the workplace environment, a lot of people really cherish that. And then the last one is teleworking. A lot of people enjoy teleworking. As myself, I love it. I said my commute is very short. My commute from is 10 seconds from my bed to my computer. So pretty much I enjoy it. There are instances where you know, I have to go into work for meetings and things, but I really enjoy the fact that I can do most of what I can do from home. So teleworking is nice. And that also goes along with the consultant. So, or, you know, running your own business. If that's something you wanted to do eventually, and you felt like, hey, I kind of want to carve out my own path and work for myself, then, I mean, and you like that lifestyle of teleworking, then I would go the consultant route maybe. Are there any other questions from here before I move to the next slide?
No.
Okay, thank you, Lindsay. Okay, so learning how to code for free. So some of my favorite resources are on the left-hand side and the right, but my favorite one is YouTube. If you're interested in learning even more about computer programming, or if there's anything that I couldn't answer or didn't maybe explain too well, I'm pretty sure there's someone on YouTube that can let you know something way better, but also in a short time span. YouTube, I was raised on YouTube pretty much, so anything that you need to find there regarding software, jobs, or any other questions, like you can find it all on YouTube. So, and then lead code, if you're very interested in like trying to figure out an example of what a coding interview would look like and what that process looked like, then you could go to LeetCode, which has thousands of interview-like questions that I've even seen in interviews. There is great preparation in order to land jobs at these Fortune 500 companies such as Facebook, Amazon, Microsoft, Google, Netflix. So, excuse me, I would definitely look there as well. And then these are a bunch of other resources as well. So W3 schools, I think Kay was telling the last group earlier that they probably are going to, you know, eventually get into W3 schools with their account. And then you have Khan Academy, Free Code Camp as well. And then I also wanted to talk about the certification training. So as I told the last group, the path to software engineering isn't always like one-sided. A lot of us aren't just going, you know, to maybe the biggest name school like a Harvard or Princeton in order to get to Microsoft, or some don't even have degrees. They went to a coding boot camp or they took a bunch of certifications in order to get to the road that they have. So I can say I stand shoulder to shoulder with people who don't have degrees, or, you know, go to these Princeton or Harvard's, but, you know, we're all at the same place. So it's really about the work that you put in and your passion for technology, and that desire to keep learning, really. So certifications really keep you brushed up on the different technologies that are coming through out there. So there's always going to, like I said, technology is always evolving. There's always going to be something new. So how do you keep up with what's going on? Even as someone who is a software engineer now, I'm continually learning things so I can be brushed up and be able to compete and work with our competition. So I think that's the biggest thing I could take away here. Just like if you are interested, I would start with the free resources first, and then migrate over here to the right-hand side with the other resources. So these resources may cost, but these are some of my favorite resources. Pluralsight, which is pretty much like takes deep dives into specific subjects about languages and computer programming concepts. same as LinkedIn. And then probably my favorite coding book is Cracking the Coding Interview. So if you were to wanted to land a job at one of these big companies, or even, you know, one of the smaller ones, a lot of those companies follow this guideline and really trying to evaluate software engineers or possible software engineer candidates. So I would definitely invest in those as well. And my last tidbit is to, yes, always invest in yourself in terms of if money or just time, and putting in the time to learn. That would be like the main key to success. So with that, do I have any other questions before we move forward into our Kahoot? Okay, I think we're good.
I do want to mention, everybody, your very easy homework for next week is to create a w3schools.com account, because the presenter next week will have you guys doing some exercises on that platform. So I will send an email out with that link to remind you guys to do that. But I also want to mention that we don't have that many people here tonight. So do you guys want to do the quiz, or do you guys want to wrap up since there's only a couple of you? I'm happy to have you guys do the quiz, but if there's only the few of you here, if you don't want to do it, that's also cool. We're taking a vote.
Not really.
Okay. So, and while we have Mr. Stone here, do you guys have any follow-up questions for him about the presentation or about his career path? And you talked about how he broke into the industry.
No.
No, no questions in the chat. Okay, if you don't mind, Chris, I think we're going to conclude a little early this evening, just because we have a smaller group tonight. So
Well, yeah,
thank you so much for an excellent presentation. Do you have anything you want to close with?
Nope, not here, but just thank you all for listening and taking time out of your day to come to this presentation. And I appreciate it again, Kay, for having me here today. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you very much. And thank you everyone who attended and participated tonight. I think these were great sessions. As always, all of the supplementary materials, this presentation, notes, the previous presentation, and handouts and articles and videos are available on the program website. We will meet again next week, again at 6 p.m. to talk about, we'll be covering computer programming, or sorry, computer science, and then the life skills presentation will be about managing stress, decision-making, and risk. And you'll get an email from me tomorrow with a rating link for this session and also for last week's session. I really appreciate it if you'd fill those out. And with that, I'm going to close the evening. Thanks very much, everybody. Have a great night.